Good evening, or morning, or whatever time of the day it happens to be. Welcome one, welcome all to the Writer's Black podcast. If you're just joining us for the very first time, wipe your feet, please, before you come into the podcast. We don't want to track in mud. I am your host, Greg Nikus, joined this week by our very special guest, young adult author Claribel Ortega is joining us on the podcast this week to talk about the latest entry in her series, Witchlings. We'll also talk about the road she took from her career in journalism to becoming a YA author, her time writing for Marvel, how she manages her mental health and self-care when she's in the middle of crunch time, and so much more. If you're enjoying the Writer's Black podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcast, if you wouldn't mind giving us a review, leaving a comment, maybe letting us know what we can improve on, letting us know maybe guests that you want to see, sky's the limit. You just have to ask. So please, by all means, tell us in the comments below, give us a review. And if you want to go the extra mile to support us, head over to our Patreon. That is patreon.com/writersblackpod, where you can get episodes of the podcast one day early and a few bonus goodies here and there for absolutely free. And without further ado, guys, just sit back, relax, and enjoy our lovely conversation with young adult author Claribel Ortega.
I'm on this satellite radio tour, so I've been doing interviews the whole day. I'm at the final stretch though, so.
Okay, that's good. So you're almost done. You get to have a little bit of rest and relaxation after that. I guess I want to start kind of with the hard-hitting question first. I guess the really important thing, the elephant in the room, so to speak. What is your favorite Sims game, and who is your favorite Animal Crossing villager?
Oh my goodness. Favorite Animal Crossing villager is going to be challenging because I have not gone back to my island in many months. It definitely is full of cockroaches. There was one that he loved working out, and I believe his name was Poncho or close to Poncho, and I loved him. He was great. And Sims, I'm gonna have to say the best one in the franchise is 2. It's my favorite. I think it's the best storytelling. It's the best for if you want to make legacies, the best items, the best humor. I think we've gone backwards since then, to be honest with you. I really miss sort of the goofiness of the first 3 Sims installments. I think 4 is great in that you can run it very easily on your computer. On 3 would take forever to load, but we lost so much of sort of the voice of the game itself that used to be so fun and tongue-in-cheek, and I just think a lot of that is gone, and it's what made the game fun for me.
I was convinced as a kid I could get Bella Goth back to the right map. I was convinced you could do it, and it can't be done.
Oh yeah, I loved that whole storyline.
I guess getting into the real questions there. You started out as a journalist. That was your original focus. What inspired your shift from journalism to YA writing, and how has being a former reporter influenced your fiction writing, both in terms of research and incorporating real-world issues and the way you craft narratives or scenes?
I actually originally wanted to go to school for creative writing, but famously my school rejected me from their program, which I love reminding them of any chance I get, especially when they're interviewing for me for something or putting me on the front page of their department as a success story. I'm yeah, but you guys rejected me from creative writing. So journalism was something that I was also interested in. And I thought, well, I can still incorporate my love of writing and my love of news and current events. So I went to school for that. And I'm actually really glad that I did pivot there and not just give up on writing altogether, because my career as a journalist, really, it was not too long, but it prepared me in a lot of ways, especially dealing with rejection, literally having people slam doors in my face. I'm doing a lot of research, going out into the world and asking questions about things. And one of the things that I learned in journalism school is the more information you have, the easier the story will be to write. And I carry that over into my fiction writing as well.
So in 2020, then, your debut novel, Ghost Squad, comes out. It's about 2 friends accidentally awakening an evil spirit. It's very much like your later work in that kind of that Halloween Town-esque vibe that I think you've kind of found a good niche in. What inspired your love of, let's say, the magical adventure genre?
Well, I was a huge Lord of the Rings fan when I was younger. I think in terms of fantasy, that was definitely what got me into that genre. And I also was a huge Goosebumps fan. So I loved anything like spooky, Halloween, Hocus Pocus, Halloween Town. All of those things really shaped me as a child. I watched them over and over again. I wanted to write something that gave me that same sort of feeling of like safe scariness, where it's like it's Halloween, it's scary, but you're like, you know, deep down that you're okay. It's like my favorite feeling in the world. So I love the fall. It just kind of reminds me of that vibe. It's my goal to sort of like write that into a lot of my books.
After Ghost Squad, you were featured in several story compilations. Was there a piece that you wrote for one of those that maybe stands out that as you like a favorite that you wrote from there?
Yeah, I really loved my story in Reclaim the Stars called Killing El Chivo, which was a my own like sort of retelling of the assassination of Trujillo, which is a dictator in Dominican Republic where my parents are from. It's told through a magical lens. He was called El Chivo the goat as sort of like a moniker, and I made him a literal goat monster in the story. And the three sisters who helped bring about his demise are witches living in the countryside, and I used a lot of like the really creepy Dominican folklore and mythology to sort of reshape the story through a magical lens. And I've been asked a few times if I'm going to write young adult from people who really loved that short story. So I think it was effective.
In that time period you're writing for all the compilation books, you contributed to a Marvel piece, Marvel Voices Volume 1. What was your experience like with that? Were you really into superheroes and Marvel stuff? And if so, like, did you have a favorite character or a favorite hero, or what was that like for you?
My favorite Marvel character is the Hulk. I love him so much. And when I started writing this story, I actually wanted to include the Hulk, but in the timeline, he was in Hulk Hell, which is why we had to use an alternative a Hulk, which is really cool anyway. This is a Korean American Hulk, so it kind of worked. It was such a cool experience because from start to finish, we did everything in just about 8 days, including the art, everything. It was a really fast turnaround, and Marvel has this incredible team of people that make sure that everything is working in terms of the timeline and continuity. So every little thing that you write has to fit within the greater world. And working so closely with that team was really interesting and cool and very intense. It was my second time sort of with writing a script instead of just prose. My graphic novel Frizzy was my first time writing any sort of like graphic novel comic related thing, so I had a little bit of experience, but I definitely benefited from their guidance because it's quite different to write like a one shot that way.
I guess speaking of Frizzy, your second big book, it's much different than Ghost Squad. It's much different than Witchlings that came after. It's a much more personal coming of age story. And I guess how important was that story to you? How much of yourself is in the character of Marlene?
Frizzy was my most personal book by accident. I never meant to make it so sort of like ripped from the headlines of my childhood, but there were so many moments of things that happened directly to me that I added to the story. So it is very autobiographical in many ways, not completely. It's not a memoir or anything like that. But there were many moments taken straight from my childhood, from experiences that my nieces had as well. It was really important for me to write because I wish I had had that book when I was a kid so that it didn't have to take me so long to sort of like learn to embrace. My hair's naturally curly. It's not right now, but being able to like embrace my natural curls. I wish I had sort of guidance in that area. So Frizzy is sort of like a cheat code for kids so that they don't have to spend years and years sort of battling their natural hair, and they know that they're beautiful just the way you are. And also for parents to sort of unlearn some of those things that they were taught as kids and see how their words really do affect the self-esteem and development of their kids when it comes to their appearance.
Do you think there'd be maybe room for another book from you like Frizzy, something also also drawing from personal experience to speak to that younger audience about?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would love to write another story sort of like within the Frizzy universe, but right now I have so many other books that I'm on deadline for that will have to wait for the future, including another graphic novel with the same illustrator, Rose Busamra, but it's quite different than Frizzy. It's
Okay.
actually Sims inspired. So
Speaking of like all the other things you've got, all the other irons you have in the fire, Witchlings came after that. Your acclaimed young adult fantasy series about a young witch named Seven, who is not selected to join one of the major covens, and along with new friends must embark on the impossible task to gain their full powers. Was Witchling originally conceived as another kind of like one-off book, or and then you just fell in love with the characters in the world, or did you know that this was going to be like the big series going into it?
I was always hoping that it would be a big series. I wasn't sure if it was actually going to be that. It wasn't until sort of the first book came out that we were able to agree on making it a longer running series. It originally sold as just book one and then an option book, but the option book thankfully became the Golden Frog Games book two, and then we sold the rest of the books in the series, which is very exciting. Originally, it was supposed to be 7 books, but then as I plotted everything out, I realized that that would have been stretching it out a little bit, and so I decided that 5 would be the last one for this particular arc.
Okay, and then book 4 just came out, so it's we got one more book to
One
go.
more, yeah,
Oh, that's so
one more.
sad.
But I am hoping in the future, fingers crossed, that I will get to do a sort of spin-off and pick up right after the events of book 5 to do a graphic novel series.
The world of Witchlings, it feels so lived in. You've got your class systems, you've got your alternate phrasings like totally, toad and like what the hex. For me, I have so many stories that I've been working on since I was a kid, and there is so much world building that's gone along with that. In your brain, how long has the world of Witchlings existed? Is it a sandbox that you've been playing in since you were a child, or are you just that good?
Oh, I guess I'm just that good. I started working on it around 2018. Around, I was very focused on those like little details because I think that's what makes a world really feel lived in. Having a system of measurement, having a religion, having, all of these sayings and traditions and holidays, things that we have in our own world, right? So developing the world with those things in mind, I think really helped make it feel like a lived in place. So thank you for that. That's a very big compliment.
You done such a good job painting a picture with words. I think your cover artist also, her name is Lizzie Marlin, I believe.
Lissy Marlin,
Yep,
yeah.
Lizzie did a great job on those covers. I absolutely adore just it kind of feels like a Steven Universe van art type vibe. How involved are you in those conversations about the art of Witchlings? And do you have a favorite cover perchance out of the 4 so far?
I do have a favorite cover. I am pretty involved in the process. Lissy usually does a couple different variants before we land on one, and then we sort of like hone in on that one and get it just right. We're already working on the cover for book 5, believe it or not. And my favorite cover is actually book 4. I love it. I think it's so beautiful. I love the colors. I love that the witchlings look older and like they've come into their own. We did have to go back and forth on Seven's outfit a few times because I didn't think it was quite as cool as Thorns and Valleys in the first iteration of the cover. So we went back and changed it. And the one we landed on, I absolutely love. Lissy is incredible. And I actually really, really hope putting it out in the universe that if we ever do get to do the graphic novel, that she will be the artist. I think that would really tie everything together.
Throughout the series, Seven has a few extra friends, extra hands throughout the series in the form of Cheese the raccoon and their merry band of food themed raccoons.
Yes.
What was the inspiration for this? This cracked me up every time I was told about it, and then I'm like, I have to see what these raccoons are doing.
I love raccoons. I think they're great. I think they're so funny and they're so cute. And I needed an animal that would conceivably be half monster, right? And I said, of all the animals in our world that are like easily recognizable, which ones would be half monster? And raccoons just made so much sense to me. They're just so mischievous, and I thought it was perfect. And I'm very food motivated, so naming them after their parents' favorite food just made sense. I love cheese. For the longest time, my bio said, if you don't like cheese, I just can't trust you. That's like most people when they started following me, that was my bio, like on Tumblr and like on Twitter back in the day. So it was just a natural extension of sort of like the things that I love, which are food and raccoons.
What are the names of the raccoons? I don't think we don't have the names of all of them yet, but what are the names of the ones that are revealed currently?
So I do actually think we have names of all of them. I don't know
Okay.
if I remember them all off the top of my head. We have cheese. We have the stick brothers, which are mozzarella stick and breadstick. Those are my favorite. We have sopa, which is soup in Spanish. Let's see. Okay, we have chicken finger, toston, sweet potato, fish, pudding, pasta, and cheese. So yeah,
Okay.
those are the raccoons.
Fantastic. Glad that mystery was solved. Going back, I guess, a little bit, talking more about the magic systems. when you're making systems, even if it's for like a D&D campaign, let's say, they can get very complex very quickly.
Yeah.
How did you decide on the rules to set for spares and versus full witches? And were the rules of magical ideas you ended up discarding or changing? Were there rules, sorry, that you ended up discarding or changing?
Yeah, I think for spares, I unfortunately was very easy to just like pull from our real world and people that are marginalized every day and sort of like the effects of like centuries of marginalization. In order to create sort stuff like the covens and the coven houses, I used a combination of like Zodiac and D&D character creation to try to balance it as much as I possibly could. Um, and yeah, I think it turned out pretty well. I remember when I sort of like debuted the Coven quiz on Twitter back in the day, a lot of writers took it. And in the world, Moth House writing or authorship is like a big career for that Coven. And most authors got Moth House. So I felt like, okay, I think I got it right.
There are some heavier moments throughout the series: abuse, loss, class disparity. They're all woven into this fantastical adventure. How do you decide how much darkness to include when writing for those young readers, and how do you write it so they can grapple with it safely?
It's definitely a balancing act to make sure that they don't get too overwhelmed. Kids can handle a lot more than I think people realize, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to write things with them in mind in a way that they're going to be able to absorb and understand. Kids these days, especially, have so many opinions about the world and about politics, way more than when I was a kid. So they're in there, they get it. And exploring these real world issues was really essential for me to get them hooked and invested in the story and the problems of this world. So I definitely use a lot of things like the raccoons and the whimsy of the animals and the beauty of the world, and also humor to sort of balance those two things and make sure that the kids are never overwhelmed. If I'm feeling overwhelmed after, a chapter or two, I know that it's time for like a joke or a moment or just like a soft interaction between some of the characters to kind of balance it out.
So, book four, Scepter of Memories, just came out. What all can you share with us with this latest release? I guess this is like the big like PR question I have.
Book four, Scepter of Memory, sees the Witchlings leaving the 12 towns for the very first time to find the famed Scepter of Memories, which you can see on the cover. Seven is holding it in order to save their home. They travel west through the Enchanted Grim, a treacherous landscape where all the most fearsome monsters of their world are from, and to a brand new city named Jor, which I had so much fun writing. And it's based on New York City because the 12 towns are based on the river towns in the Hudson Valley. So it just made sense. So they're faced with new challenges, new truths about themselves and their world, and they're also dealing with the changing times, which is this world's version of puberty.
You've mentioned how much stuff you're juggling right now, how many projects you're taking on. We talk a lot on the show about mental health, about kind of how we maintain and manage it, and sometimes we fail to maintain and manage it. How are you kind of wearing all these hats and doing it so, I must say, so spectacularly?
Thank you for that. Well, it doesn't always look perfect. There's been it's been a learning process for sure. I think in the very beginning of my career, there was a lot of sort of like pushing off things that were, self-care or even taking care of yourself, just in normal everyday life things, for writing and like overworking myself. And it was always sort of like a moving goalpost of like, once I get an agent, then I can slow down. And then that became once my first book comes out. And then that became once I hit the New York Times bestseller list, there was always a moving goalpost. And then I realized I'm pushing so many things aside, so many moments with my family and friends, so much of the things that I should be doing for myself and taking care of myself and my life in service of these books, when in reality, what I'm doing is I'm creating a really unhealthy work life balance that becomes a habit. It's not just until the next thing. You become used to it, and that's just the way you start working. And so I had to put the brakes on that and really strive to find uh, a healthier schedule for myself that included movement and therapy and time with friends, because all of those things contribute to me being happier, which is the most important thing, but also being a better writer. You burn out eventually, and then you're not going to be any good to yourself or anyone else. So taking care of myself was definitely a learning process, but thankfully I was able to spot it before it got to a point where my burnout was so bad that I had to take a few years off, which I've seen happen before. You have to protect yourself and your own energy. Outside forces, and even when you are published, like your publisher they will push you as far as you're willing to be pushed, and you have to sort of like protect that space, your writing time, your personal time. All of those things are important to have as well.
Going back to some lighter stuff, more Witchling related stuff. These are a couple questions from our producer. What is your favorite Golden Frog game competition?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to say costura, like the fashion competition. I love telling people that Golden Frog Games is like a Project Runway meets a magic book for kids, and it's really what it feels like. I love those kinds of things. I love RuPaul's Drag Race, all those kinds of shows. So that would be my personal favorite. I also like Spaceball because I think it's really funny, and I'm like sort of making fun of how long baseball games take. Those are my two faves.
If you were sorted into a coven, which coven do you think it'd be and why?
Well, I have taken the Coven quiz. You can take it at witchlingsquiz.com. And I am House of Stars, which makes a lot of sense because I love anything cute and aesthetic. I love makeup. I love fashion. And that's sort of like the Coven that's hyper focused on aesthetics. So that makes sense.
How fun was it to create your own alternate phrasings, and do you have a favorite?
It was very fun. My favorite is butt toad. And I love when parents tell me that their kids are saying it around the house. It makes me very happy.
Did you ever imagine people would create fan art for your books? And do you have a favorite piece that you've seen?
I never thought people would make fan art for my books. Like, I never expected any of the things that have happened in my career until they happen. And it's always been like a happy surprise. And in terms of fan art, there's so much good fan art of the witchlings, of the side characters, but I especially love watching short form videos of that kids make of the characters and of Figs, who has inspired many a crush across the Witchlings fandom. There are so many funny YouTube shorts about him. If you go on there, they're delightful.
What authors, books, other media, parentheses, movies, folklore, TV, etc., inspired you when writing Witchlings?
Definitely The Worst Witch was a big inspiration. Also, Hell's Moving Castle, Diana Wynne Jones is one of my favorite authors of all time. The idea for the Witchling series came from the question, what would happen if the Sorting Hat put you nowhere? So I can't really divorce it from that series. Although I will say that Witchlings is a queer normative world and very different viewpoints when it comes to the authors as well.
And then I guess before we run out of time, can you give us any insight into book 5 and what else is on the horizon for the series? I know you mentioned the graphic novel, maybe, I don't know, maybe a potential spinoff following Bellwether and the story of Jor. I don't know. Yeah, but I guess what's in store for the future of Witchlings?
Yeah, so I actually have already finished writing the first draft of book 5. I can't share too much about it without it being spoilery, but I will say that there is another quest. It's very different than the one in book 4. There are brand new characters, very unexpected characters, and I am hoping that I stick the landing. It's not easy to write the final book of a series that's this long, but I had a lot of fun writing the first draft, and I'm looking forward to revisions and really diving in there and finishing it off strong.
Any other series that you're working on the horizon, just for different stuff or new one-offs you're gonna be doing, or
Yeah, so the graphic novel with Rose Samra, 30 Ways to Kill Your Avatar, has been announced already. It's inspired by The Sims, and it's about a young girl who gets sucked into a video game that's like The Sims. There's a mini game within the game that's never been seen before in the 5th generation. And it's called 30 Ways to Kill Your Avatar, and you have to kill your characters in all the available ways there are to die. But when she gets sucked in the game, her brother starts playing and killing her over and over again. So it's sort of an ode to like that gruesome Sims play, but it's also dealing with like grief and medical debt and poverty. And it's a very heavy book, but it's also very funny. And then I will be at some point before the end of the year announcing a new series. So everyone should keep their eye out for that.
100%, they absolutely should. And where can they go to find you online to keep up with all that good stuff?
Sure. So my website is claribelortega.com, and I'm on Threads, Instagram, and TikTok at claribel_Ortega.
Thank you, Claribel, so much for joining us this week on the Writer's Block podcast. Make sure you head over to claribelortega.com to keep up with everything that Claribel is doing. And be sure to pick up your copy of Witchlings, Book 4, Scepter of Memories, available wherever books are sold. It was a super fun conversation this week. I loved how much glee Claribel had when talking about her world and her books, and I really look forward to seeing what she does next. I'm really excited to check out 30 Ways to Kill Your Avatar when it comes out. That sounds like a lot of fun, and you absolutely should too. So please follow her on social media, check out Witchlings, check out Frizzy, check out Ghost Squad, and just have a good old-fashioned time with them. Next week on the podcast, I'm sitting down with my old friend, journalist David Phillips, is joining us on the podcast to talk about his love of film and boxing and how he turned those into a career. We'll also talk about his book, Good Night to the Peoples, 10 Years with Two Dogs, and we'll figure out who's going to play David in the live-action adaptation of that book.
Absolutely. And if we can get Tom Hardy to play me, because look, it's not just because I love him. Oh, I do. If you're listening, Tom, I love you. It's not just because of that, but that dude loves dogs like I love dogs. Mm-hmm. And also, he's way more handsome than me and way more interesting than me. But he can do a Midwestern accent. I've heard him do it. He can do any accent you want, and he'd be great.
If you're enjoying the Writer's Block podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcast, please leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing, what we can improve on, and just things you'd like to see implemented into the show. Maybe a few guest suggestions, who knows? And if you want to go above and beyond, please consider heading over to our Patreon. That is patreon.com/writersblackpod, where you can get episodes one day early and get some extra goodies here and there, sprinkled in, all for absolutely free. We're just trying to build a little community on our homepage over there, so please, guys, consider checking out patreon.com/writersblackpod. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the podcast this week. I've been Greg Nikas. You've been awesome. And keep writing.